Remember being a new student on the first day of class and having no idea what to expect? What if I told you there's something you can do as an instructor to help set realistic expectations for your students in 10 minutes or less? Are you interested? If so, hit that like button and let's get started with advice from former students. Hi there, welcome back. My name is Sarah if you're new here, and I'm a trainer, facilitator, and university educator. I am all about active learning strategies, and I'm here to help you go beyond the lecture, equipping you with tools and strategies that you can use to engage your audience and transform the learning experience. Today, I want to tell you how you can harness and share feedback from former students to benefit your current students using an activity called Advice from Former Students. And trainers, this one works great for you too, especially for a multi-day training that you repeat more than once. So grab a cup of coffee or a snack and let's get started. This activity happens in two parts. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes on the first day of class and another 10 to 15 minutes on the last day of class. But in order to start using this activity in your classroom, you have to begin at the end. That means if you're doing this for the first time, you're going to start on the last day of class. Stick with me and I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that, including how to prep, set up, and run this activity. And I'll give you a special bonus tip at the end, so make sure you stay tuned. To prep for the last day of class, all you need are index cards. I like the 3x5 size lined. Make sure you have enough for every student in your class, then you're ready to implement. Students don't switch seats for this activity, so they can stay where they are. Pass out the blank index cards and have each student take one. Then give them the instructions. Here's what I usually say. You've made it to the last day of class and you are all experts in my class now. I want you to share your expertise with future students who will be in the class next semester. And you're going to do that by writing advice cards to them using the index cards that you have in your hand. Please write to them as if you are speaking directly to these future students. Think about the things that you wish you had known on your first day of class this semester. Share any tips, tricks, or other pieces of advice. A few sentences is fine, and please don't put your name on these cards. They are totally anonymous. Any questions? When I do this activity, I instruct students to keep their cards with them at their desk once they're done writing. When everyone is finished, I ask students to stand up and read their cards out loud one at a time, popcorn style. No, not that kind of popcorn. Students just pop up out of their seats without being called on. Whether or not you have students read their cards out loud is totally optional, but if you do choose to do the activity this way, be prepared for all of the varied advice that your students might give. Here are some of the gems that I've gotten over the years. Sarah is actually the best, so knowledgeable, sweet, and funny. Don't be nervous, you're gonna learn so much. Do as many journals as possible. They're therapeutic and also extra credit. Use the Ask It basket freely. You're gonna feel so empowered by the end. If you have questions, don't be embarrassed to ask. You'll never have another opportunity to ask them in an environment like this, and chances are other people are wondering the same thing. The mid-class break is the real deal. Class doesn't feel like 2.5 hours with it. Professor Axelson will never let you out early. Never. So don't expect it. Do your journals, do the extra credit movie, and come to class prepared to learn and have fun. Ask It Basket is Google search on steroids. Hello, happy first week of classes. Buckle up for the best class of your semester. Put in the work, stay engaged, ask questions, and get to know your classmates. This class is a public service. Sarah is incredible and you're lucky to be here in this community. Soak it up and don't forget it. Once all of the students have read their cards, I collect them all. I explain that the purpose of having them share is not to say nice things about me, though I appreciate that deeply. I want them to think back and remember who they were on their first day of class at the beginning of the semester and recognize how far they've come in 4 short months. And I want them to celebrate and feel proud of that. And that's the end of the classroom component for the last day of class. Take all of the cards home with you. And here's a quick tip for storage. If you do this activity over the course of several semesters, you are going to end up with lots and lots of index cards. So I recommend writing the course number and the year and semester on an index card and then clipping it to the stack of advice cards from that semester. This way, when you come back to it a few months later, you won't forget which one is the most recent set of advice cards from former students. Now, remember when I said that to start using this activity, you needed to begin at the end? Once you've done this on the last day of class, now you're ready to start using this activity on the first day of the next semester. Let's see what that looks like. To prep for the first day of class, gather the advice cards from the last day of the last semester. Here's where that tip on storage comes in handy. And bring the cards with you to class. Just like when you use this activity on the last day of class, students can stay put in their seats where they are. Pass out the index cards and have each student take one without looking at them. And if you had more students last semester, a few students may need to take more than one this time around. Then give students the instructions. I usually say something like this. I know the first day of class can be really nerve-wracking. You don't know me that well, you don't know what to expect, and some of you might be trying to decide whether or not you want to drop the class. So I want to share some advice with you from the people who know best what this class is like. You're holding advice cards from former students, and I'd like for you to stand up and read them out loud one at a time, popcorn style. Each one is different, and I encourage you to listen closely because they might have some valuable tips or advice for you to be successful in class this semester, or maybe even make your decision about whether or not you want to stay. Give the class about 5 to 10 minutes to read all of the cards, depending on how many there are. I try to draw students' attention to particularly useful tips using smiles, body language, or even verbal cues. I also let students know if there's a tip about something that has changed since last semester, like a specific assignment or a number of journal entries they have to write. Once all of the students have read the cards, I collect them all again. I share that I hope that they gave them some useful insight into what the course will be like this semester, and that I'm looking forward to seeing all of them again next week. Here are some adaptations you can use if you have a larger class size or if you're teaching online. My class has about 30 students. If you have significantly more than that, you can still use this activity. Just break them up into smaller groups of maybe 10 or 20 students, and then everything else remains the same. Although they won't hear quite as many tips or tricks because they'll be listening to advice from fewer students, they should be able to get enough of a flavor of what the course is like to make decisions about moving forward. This activity is also easy to adapt for a virtual classroom or teaching online. Instead of having students write on physical index cards in the classroom, you can use an online whiteboard platform like Google Jamboard, Mural, or Miro. On the last day of class, have your students write their advice on the electronic post-it notes on the whiteboard that you've chosen, and then have them read them out loud the same way they would in the physical classroom. If you're teaching asynchronously, they could all add their advice throughout the week or over the course of a couple of days, and then come back to read them once everyone has shared. On the first day of the next semester, you can pull up the Jamboard or the online whiteboard from the last semester, and you have a couple of options for how to share what's there. Either you can read all of the post-its out loud yourself as the instructor, or maybe have students read them out loud one at a time, but then move them to a particular space on the whiteboard so they can see which ones have already been read. What other adaptations would be helpful for me to share as you're thinking about this activity or others? Drop them in the comments below and I'll be sure to include them in next week's video. And here's the bonus tip that I promised earlier. If you do this activity over the course of several semesters, you will accumulate a lot of feedback cards. Go through all of your cards and select the ones that you think have the most useful advice. You can mix and match from various semesters in order to help your current students get the most out of this activity. I label this pile Use, and I use this every single semester, swapping out a few of the cards to make sure that I'm getting the number right for how many students I have this time around. So that's it. Now you know how to run advice from former students. If you watched my last video on syllabus speed dating, you might have already figured out that this activity also has to do with the importance of belonging in the classroom. Students benefit from feeling like they belong to a community. And one of the ways that instructors can create this feeling of community is by connecting former students to current students to help share about their successes and challenges. This activity does just that. And that's it. If you like this video, find us at Beyond the Lecture on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and please, please, please share Beyond the Lecture with your networks. I'll be sharing new tools and strategies every week for our growing community. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Sarah Axelson, and I can't wait to see you go beyond the lecture.